An ex-meth addict in Duncan is using his experiences to change the lives of drug-addicted people in his community.
Dennis Hall lived as an outlaw for decades, running from police and hiding behind drugs. Now he stands proudly at the altar at the Recovery Church. It's a place where drug addicts, ex-convicts, alcoholics, lawbreakers, and everyone in between can gather together and journey toward a life free of crime.
7 News reporter Catherine Giese met with him to hear his story. Catherine?
Dave, he went from running the streets to running a church. For years, he was being chased around by Stevens County law enforcers that he now calls best friends.
When you see Dennis Hall now at the altar in his church, would you ever guess that he has a past that's too graphic to even describe? His story begins when he was a teenager.
When my mother divorced my dad, she married a guy that owned nightclubs here and was in the gangster world, and back in the 70s, and so I kind of grew up in a nightclub south of town that's not even here anymore, and my heroes were all outlaws.
He started using and making meth. His addiction spiraled out of control. Dennis Hall described himself as a monster. His lowest moment, August 26, 2001, about 7 in the morning.
I had an old junk store out there, but really all I did was cook dope in it, and they knew it. And they come in over the highway that morning, over the fence, and I saw them, and I'd been in there cooking dope all night, and I set the acetylene bottles off in that shop. I was fixing to blow them away and me away, and I'll never forget that as long as I live.
Shortly after this, then Assistant District Attorney Jason Hicks finally took Hall off the streets.
They tried to give me 2 life sentences and sent me away with 65 years day for day, and close to $100,000 in fines.
Hall described his life before prison as a godless hell. He says his time spent behind bars was sort of like seminary. He connected with the chaplain and helped him spread the message of Christianity to other inmates. When he was released only 7.5 years later, he started doing the same type of work in the Stevens County Jail alongside Sheriff Wayne McKinney.
We felt that if we could help Dennis in any way, we may be able to get some other people to save them, keep them from returning to a life of crime.
After working as a chaplain in the Stevens County Jail, Hall wanted to extend his ministry. 2 years ago, he opened the Recovery Church.
You'll find that people are recovering from everything in life. This really just isn't drugs and alcohol.
But the majority of his congregation does have a past tainted with addiction. Hall says his purpose now is to free them of their past.
Sometimes these folks coming out don't have a chance. And if they didn't have someone to disciple them and love them and mentor them, they wouldn't make it.
Robert Wilkins is a recovering addict. When he was released from rehab, he had nothing. But then Dennis Hall stepped in.
I provided me with a home and a job within 2 days. And now my family's over here. I'm working every day. My bills are getting paid, and I'm starting to see the light.
Wilkins is now a member of the Recovery Church. He lives a life free of drugs with his wife and daughter. He works at a car shop in Duncan that employs only ex-addicts looking to change their lives. Hall says Wilkins' story is just one of many testaments to the power of the Recovery Church.
To see a life that was like mine, that was fixing to be flushed down the toilet with no chance, to see those lives get changed and turned around, there's no greater satisfaction in life than that.
Dennis Hall says there's only one way to win the war against drugs, and that is to really invest in the lives of those addicted. He says that saving lives is a team effort. It's his entire staff and congregation combined that make recovery a possibility. Back to you.
Thanks, Catherine. And the Recovery Church is raising money for what they're calling the Castle House. It's an 8,000 square foot home in Duncan that they would use as a women and children's shelter.